On today's episode of The Glue Guys, we're just going to clean up. We are Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting. We are the janitors here. We're just going to clean up after what just happened. If you notice that Brian and I didn't pod directly after Game 4 because
we're brilliant janitors. We're genius-level janitors.
we know that there'd be more dirt that would be flying out of the trash heap that is the Nets, and we have gotten that dirt, so we're going to talk Kyrie Irving running the franchise, Kevin Durant on Steve Nash's future with the team, and, of course, Ben Simmons and his back. Welcome back to The Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello to Ryan.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at BK Glue Guys. Netsdaily.com. The Athletic. Get yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com/Glue Guys. Subsidiary.
Yeah.
The New York Times.
Give it to me, Michael.
The Nets are vacationing. Woo!
Yeah. If you like pina colada. Hey, Mike, I feel okay. You know what it is? We didn't, like we said in the intro, we didn't pod, strategically didn't pod, because we already did our first, mega downtrodden, down bad, big sag podcast last week.
Which I just want to say, it was one of our most listened to episodes.
Huge numbers.
Ever.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it. But I also know that people don't always want us to be sad. But we were authentically sad after Game 3.
I'm not sad anymore, Mike. You know what? It feels like...
Oh, you feel great?
I know we're in Cancun, we're drinking pina coladas. It feels like home. It feels like home to me. It feels like, the bad things happening to the Nets. That's what I know. That's what I was born into. So, this feels... After 2 days, it's like, you know what? It's just like it's just back to being an old-fashioned Nets fan, baby. Let's go. Fire it up.
You were born to be a geek.
That's
right.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not naming the movie where that's
Don't
from.
Name it.
Brian, if you're not for the YouTube, hey, YouTube, we got over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. God bless you for subscribing. Everyone else should jump in. We have all of our shows plus additional fun content made by our video content coordinator, Des Lombardo.
Big shout out.
Brian has some delicious looking pina coladas behind him. I have an image of a Cancun. We're off-season vibes, baby. Hey,
Huge.
No worries.
No worries.
Nets are the championship favorites going into next year in my mind, so I'm not worried about it.
I do feel like, Kyrie Irving right now, it's like school's out for summer. He's like, thank God, I'm done. I'm done with this for now. Everyone's just, we're all checked out on basketball and on life in various states, Mike, depending on where you're at.
Let me do this quick checked out when game. When in the season was Kyrie Irving checked out? October.
I believe to start the season, Mike. I believe. Yeah.
Kevin Durant.
It happened very late, but it happened in no, I don't think he actually ever checked out. But that last series was it actually for the first time it cast some level of doubt in my mind about oh my gosh, Kevin Durant's supposed to be the best player in the world, and he does not look like he doesn't look better than Jason Tatum right now. I'll tell you that right now.
Yes. And Steve Nash checked out ever?
Never checked in, baby. Come on, out to lunch.
What is the Hotel California? You can check in, but you never leave. Oh, sorry. What a dad joke, just Huge. To include the Eagles. Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about with this team. I mean, sort of in the wreckage of Game 4. It was really, if you hated the Nets, this was peak sort of your time.
Yeah.
It was for the freaks and geeks out there.
And honestly,
really
shout out to the Celtics
Nets.
fans who jumped into the, brigaded the YouTube chat last. I mean, we love you guys. I mean, and honestly, we are holding our L as solidly with as firm a grip as anyone can possibly hold an L. There's just no way to squirm out of this. So I get it. You gotta lay it on, and that's what I would do if I were in your position. So that's the way the world works, Mike.
And if we were not authentic podcasters, because that's what we are, we're authentic as could be. We are certified fresh. If I was inauthentic, I would do the series was only decided by 18 points. It's the closest sweep in NBA history. If the Nets had only closed out Game 1, the entire sort of fabric and the story of the series would have looked completely differently. But if I'm being honest with myself, actually watching the games and not just thinking about margin of victory, the Nets did not deserve to win the series. In fact, it was the Celtics who Temple of Doom them and ripped out their hearts continually. The Celtics look so much more structured. I mean, the thing is that team has been playing together for a while, even though they have a new coach in there. Even though the Celtics didn't look good to start the year, they a lot of people had thought they would be a top 3 team in the East anyways to begin. I remember you and I, it was like after like the 3rd week of the season, we went in on the Celtics, saying how awful, like, oh my God, I'm so happy that they suck. And I think that's what spurred them to what happened in this first round.
We went too hard. We played ourselves, Mike, as they say.
Before we put this series to bed, the one thing I do want to ask is, like, I brought up that margin of victory thing. If on the scale of a very close series to in a complete embarrassment, in that spectrum, where do you put it? Are you closer to embarrassment, or are you closer to, it was a toss-up, guys.
Yeah.
It was a couple of bouncing balls either way.
It was as decisive a waxing as you could possibly get with this amount of talent on the team. Like, this is like through sheer talent alone, we could make these games somewhat close, like to close out the game, just make our impotent last run at keeping it close. But like throughout the entirety of this series, every time I would look at the scoreboard, the score would just vacillate between us being down 4 to us being down 11. It just like was always in that range. And the thing with that happened for the Celtics, which sucks and is good for them, bad for us, is that like Tatum really did become a heartbreak kid gunner. Like, he just makes like a lot of really hard shots, and it's like every tempo shot he strokes, like he auto stroke. Anytime where there's like a change in the wind, it good or bad, he stops bleeding and he adds to bloodletting when necessary. So he's like he's really good. It just happened for him. He's that guy for sure.
He's 100%.
Yeah,
that'd be. And you talked about Kevin Durant. I think we need like a whole 8-part series on Kevin Durant this offseason, because we're going to have a lot of fun offseason content for you all, which is why you should subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to the podcast if you're just listening to us for the first time.
Don't miss it.
You brought up maybe it altered your thinking on Kevin Durant's sort of what he will provide for this team. Do you actually think that? Like, do you think something tangibly changed in the ceiling of Kevin Durant in what you saw in this series over what you expected to see?
So I think what it did is, we've often talked about this, the religion of bucket getting that KD and Kyrie ascribe to, and it's a glorious religion, and it's pure.
It's the purest of all the religions.
But the thing is, it's like when the team is molded in that ideology, you start to really get excited for, or just like basically you look for hard shots. It's like the artistry of the difficult shot becomes something that's like, yeah, we're just making these like incredibly hard shots. Look at these bucket getters, just like against all odds, like making hard shots. And then you play a team like the Celtics, who just they don't have. I mean, they've one good offensive. They have Tatum, a great offensive player, and then a lot of like very, above average offensive players, and they get a lot of easy buckets. And it's like, oh wait, like actually you should be optimizing for easier buckets. That would be better to win the game. It's way cooler looking, the religion of bucket getting and hitting incredibly hard, fading, falling, everything shots with double coverage and all that stuff. So like this team has been molded in the bucket getting religion, I think. We really get off on making hard shots. And I hope that this has been a little bit of reckoning on that ideology a little bit, that like what?
It's not.
It's I know, but like how can you ignore this goes into this like quote that I think that we need to really dissect, and I'm sure everybody else has given it some time, but it goes into
Kyrie quote.
A Kyrie quote, because
you want me to pull it up right now?
Is it premature? I feel like it bleeds neatly into this.
My extension, man, I don't really plan on going anywhere. So, this is, like I said, this is added motivation for our franchise to be at the top of the league for the next few years. And, I'm just looking forward to the summer and just building with our guys here. So.
Just to follow up on that real quickly, you mentioned a few weeks ago you don't want to leave Kevin. You're going to be with him. Do you see you guys together for the long haul here?
I mean, I think I kind of answered that, the last one, my last answer. But when I say I'm here with Kev, I think that it really entails us, managing this franchise together alongside Joe and Sean and just our group of family members that we have in our locker room, in our organization. So
for someone who's like so quick to like dump on media people, he goes into like marketing talk really quick. He's like, the family that we have, it's like that's like a toxic corporate environment thing. We're all a family here, but I am managing this thing into the ground.
And
so
I am going to cut your pay by 20% and take away paid parental leave very quickly. So that is post game in Game 4. This is the Nets sort of reckoning. We talk about reckonings. Sort of what happened with the series. Not a lot of emotion in terms of they knew this was coming, right? They weren't surprised, so they kind of maybe knew and anticipated some of these questions. A lot of people on Twitter latched on to what Kyrie said, and you just heard it there straight from his mouth. Kev and I, along with Joe and Sean, are going to manage this franchise going forward. Now, a lot of people on Twitter, that was the quote that they got. And they were like, where's Steve Nash? Steve Nash's name. Kyrie, again, if he's going to go to the Bud Egan School of PR, the first thing he should learn is not to name names. Because you're going to leave some name out. He did say in that quote, and you heard it, our Nets family or, our extended family. And I guess Steve Nash is part of that until the divorce comes, until the papers are served. Let me ask you this. How does it make you feel that Kyrie Irving's running the franchise, Brian?
Yeah. What's the part of that's like so alarming is the total lack of introspection. Like ostensibly they have been managing the team this season. In fact, they've been in, high priority leadership positions the entirety of their stay here. And we are now at the point where reality is meeting your managerial expertise in the middle here, and it's resulted in a first round sweep against a team that anyways, Waxty. So that is like it's a subject you don't want to get into for him. Like, you shouldn't want to be like, I'm going to continue to manage this thing into the ground, because the results just now of you managing it were quite bad. So it's just like, it's a bury the lead type of thing. You want to bury that lead. So anyways, it's alarming for a lot of reasons. It just belies a lack of understanding of what went on this season for me. And it means that it's going to be endemic, and it's going to continue on into the foreseeable future, Mike. And that's why we're drinking pina coladas, baby, because that's, not my problem.
I'm trying to look for the other Kyrie quote, which is the one you may have referenced. This is what he said. I don't know if after Game 3 he first addressed it or Game 4, but this is after Game 4. Kyrie Irving says he thinks, quote, it's important when you can start to build as a team in October. Adds that it's important that everyone has each other's backs. There are a few quotes like this from Kyrie Irving, and he did somewhat address, there's other ones where he kind of addressed his own role in the lack of team building that happened in October. This will be the one sort of like angry guy segment of the thing. Everyone knows what I'm about to say. He made a choice not to be there, right? Like he made a choice not to get the vaccine, which meant that he was not going to be there at the beginning of the season, which led to James Harden not wanting to be here, which led to the Ben Simmons trade, which is looking worse and worse by every tweet of Shams Charania and Jake Fisher and Adrian Wojnarowski, right? So when the book of this team, this dynasty that almost, unless if the management of Kyrie Irving dramatically changes around the team, this is heading towards possibly one of the greatest sort of lost dynasties in NBA history. No team this talented has been this bad so far in the playoffs. So hey, what a great moment. Now I do want to ask you to test the veracity of Kyrie's tweet or his comment. Do you think the Nets view him as a co-partner with Kevin Durant as quote unquote running the organization? Or do you think there's a tier that Kevin Durant is the S tier and the tier below is Kyrie Irving?
I think right now the situation that they might be in, and this is me just, reading way between the lines, there's a couple of reckonings going on here, right? Like the extent to which the Steve Nash hire can be attributed to Kevin Durant is unknowable, right? But there's a lot of hearsay about it being a pretty direct one-to-one, like KD pretty much advocated for the Steve Nash hire. And I think like when we look at the Steve Nash hire, it's again we've attributed this I think correctly to he's like a high functioning yes man, a good politician, but he's there ultimately to placate the will of the star players on the team. Yes. And now we're in a position where if Kevin Durant specifically, and to a lesser extent Kyrie, wants to be as vocal about this next hire, and it continues to be yet another, like, you know, one of these sort of Tyrone Lue, you know, kind of a notorious politician. Not to say that Tyrone Lue is like, you know,
yeah, Ty Lue, I would have been very happy with. Yeah,
but he has had that moniker in the past, whatever. He's kind of transcended past it now. But for a time, he had a kind of a Steve Nash, like, I'm just here to make sure LeBron James is happy, sort of, you know, that was his messaging. But if there's, I don't know what other versions of that are out there, like what other ex-player turned coach. I'm sure there's plenty. You know, you could go a lot of different directions with that. If we get another one of those hires, I'll be very concerned about the future, because it means that Kevin Durant, either through like legitimate means of just being like, you know, I've earned the respect of, you know, decision making. This one didn't work out, but like that doesn't mean I don't get to have another vote going forward. It could be that they honestly respect his opinion, or it could just mean that they're being held hostage by the star power on this team and fear their wrath if they put in a coach or any other managerial position who might actually push back on any of their many demands that happen over the course of a season. So that's the thing is, like, Kevin Durant doesn't actually make a lot of demands. Kyrie is the person that makes lots of demands of people, and he has less like governing power in this structure, which is just, again, this interesting situation. But it's just because like Kevin has hitched his wagon to Kyrie for who knows what reason, but I do think
we know the reason.
It's the
religion of bucket getting. It's Kevin Durant is such, and I mean this as like a compliment and a curse, he is such praise at the altar of bucket getting. He so values a player's ability to hit a shot that, like, a guy like Kyrie, like, I'm sure Kyrie's like pretty fun to be around in person. Maybe, I don't know. It seems like people really like him. Like, in person.
I'm so tired of this. You know what it takes to have people like publicly like shit on you?
Dislike you? Yeah, it takes a lot. Yeah. It takes a lot. Like, I work with a lot of people at The Athletic, and honestly, there's really no one I dislike.
Let's hear it, Mike. Air it out. Air out that dirty laundry.
Here, let me get the slack out real quick. No, but Kevin Durant is so blinded by skill that he said it before, like when Kyrie and him first joined the team, and people were asking about, like, remember, because coming off of Kyrie leaving Boston, I don't know if people remember, was pretty dramatic. He had told Boston fans that he was going to be there long term, and then slowly over that season, he became more and more distant, to where he had another ugly playoff series against the Bucks, which leads to him coming to Brooklyn. And so there was all these questions when they signed of, like, why would you want to play with Kyrie Irving, essentially? And Durant says, Kyrie's an artist. And with an artist, you have to let them do the thing that they do and kind of leave them alone.
It's like that's like Putin says, you know, sometimes artists, they wake up in a good mood and they paint. You know, that's the.
Does Putin say that?
That was a Putin thing. He's talking about hackers. He's like, hackers are like artists. Sometimes they wake up in a good mood and they paint.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty good quote.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Good for him. But so Kevin Durant, this is who he is. Like, he values the bucket getting. There was a moment in Game 4. It was at the end of the game when the Nets were trying to, you know, make that comeback, and we talked about sort of the difficulty of shots. Kyrie is driving to the bucket, and he does the thing that James Harden does 1,000 times a game. He drove to the bucket and flung his head back as if he got fouled, and then puts up a layup. Now, he didn't get the call, but, like, it stood out to me in that moment because him and Durant so rarely try to get fouled. They so rarely act like they do get fouled. I mean, Durant does it more than Kyrie. Kyrie, it's his mission not to. They pray at the altar of bucket getting. And, you know, people ask, why would Kevin Durant hitch his wagon to Kyrie? It's because he sees and respects that game. And he believes that having those two together with actual real role players around them will equal a championship. But that's at least what he believed going into Brooklyn. I wonder what it means going out. You brought up coaching, okay? And I immediately after the series, it was my thought that, like, hey, Steve Nash is done. You don't get swept in the first round of the playoffs with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, regardless of the circumstances, and get to come back and be head coach in the NBA. You know, it's a very rare circumstance. But, of course, Kevin Durant and Steve Nash were asked about this. This is Kevin Durant with a pretty great reaction when he's asked about the question itself.
Just to be clear, do you think that Steve is still the right guy to lead this group?
I mean, come on, man. Like, yeah, like, Steve's been dealt a crazy hand the last 2 years. Like, he's had to deal with so much stuff as a head coach, first-time coach, and trades, injuries, you know, COVID, just a lot of stuff he had to deal with. And I'm proud of how he just focused on his passion for us. And, you know, we all, you know, continue to keep developing over the summer and see what happens.
So that's what, and they asked Steve Nash if he wanted to be back, and he says, yeah, I love coaching and all this stuff. You heard the quotes? Does it change your opinion of what may happen? So my opinion is still that Steve Nash is going to be fired at some point. He's going to be let go because I don't think it just in the history of the NBA, you don't get to survive a sweep in the first round. Guys like Doc Rivers are fired. You know, Doc lost being up 3-1, which is a little bit different. It's almost worse losing 3-1 than losing in a sweep. But I think Steve Nash is gone. What do you think? Pina colada.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about those pina coladas. I mean, it seems like an amicable split is one of those things that are very much on the table. Whatever. I don't know. I mean, like, if I were Steve Nash, I would leave. Like, what? He's got a million kids. What is he doing out here struggling like this on a night-to-night basis? go have a pina colada. I see him, by the way, all the time in the neighborhood. He runs like a maniac. Okay, that's he keeps it very trim. Just like run it constantly.
Maybe he should be crunching film.
Yeah.
You know what I want? I want fat Steve Nash.
Yeah.
I want, you know how you didn't see the new Batman movie, but Colin Farrell plays the Penguin, and they put a bunch of prosthetic makeup on him to make him. He actually looks like Charles Grodin. You know the actor Charles Grodin?
Sure.
He was in Midnight Run. Fat Colin Farrell equals, this is for Des Lombardo, Charles Grodin. I want Steve Nash to get like a plump Stan Van Gundy, because that means I know that he's crunching tape. I don't want him to be fit. I don't want him running around that Tony part of Brooklyn of which you live, the elite area of Brooklyn where Brian lives and commands his empire.
Incredibly doxed.
I want Steve Nash to come back like fat Chris Hemsworth in Endgame. Marvel's Endgame, you know.
All I'm thinking about now is, like, is it appropriate to have actors wear fat suits anymore? You know, like, are we, you know, because if you're an obese actor, like, where are your parts? You know, where are your parts coming from?
Should they be authentically fat or
I think so. If you're an overweight actor, can you wear a skinny suit? You know, no, you're getting, you know, pushed further and further into the margins.
There's only so many roles Paul Giamatti can play, man. There's like
he'd be a great Penguin though. They missed out.
He was Rhino in the very well forgotten Amazing Spider-Man.
Is that true?
Led by Andrew. I'm pretty sure. I've never seen the movies.
Giamatti.
I'm pretty sure Paul Giamatti played a character named Rhino in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movie. One of them.
Who like ostensibly was like an action person, like he did active things. He wasn't just a slovenly like stay like a
just
nebbish
wearing a wig and yelling at people.
A nebbish comic book enthusiast who happened to be named around.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of Sideways and classic. It always makes me laugh. So you know, there's not a loud declaration. I just don't think you get to survive a sweep. You don't. He hasn't done anything to deserve to survive a sweep. The idea of Steve Nash. So like the only thing that's keeping him alive, you know what Kevin Durant referenced there, and Durant isn't. He hasn't. I'm guarantee he hasn't like. Of course he wouldn't say yes. Steve should be fired in that press conference. The thing that Kevin Durant referenced within that is the thing that we continually reference as the only good thing Steve Nash. We know that he does. It's personality and passion, right? Like he must be a nice guy. They must really like playing for him in that way.
This is the problem with our team. We got a lot of nice guys. Everyone likes. We got a lot. Everyone's just glad handing.
But also everyone hates them.
Yeah, I think we get like a team of mean girls is what we got, man.
And I just think so. Kevin Durant early in his career had Scott Brooks, and Kevin Durant defended Scott Brooks for years and years and years. Scott Brooks used to be the poster boy for like inefficient coaching, right? I do think part of Kevin Durant's DNA, even though we know what happened with Kenny Atkinson, is like he's not like LeBron. LeBron looks at coaches and blames them. I think Kevin Durant looks at coaches and thinks, oh, they're trying, right? They're trying to do the best job that they can. I just go back to the fact that it doesn't feel like we gain any tangible advantage by having Steve Nash as our coach. There's no sort of strategic advantage. There's no substitution advantage. There's no timeout advantage from Steve Nash. And it feels like, even though, I've joked about Coach K, I'm throwing the Coach K hat out there. I just want to be first out there for when it happens. People have brought out Jay Wright. Even so, I would like Frank Vogel, like honestly feels pretty good to me. Because I know at least with Frank Vogel, like I'm going to get some defensive structure, and he's obviously won a championship, but he's been a good coach in the NBA. Like, give me something that I know I can like attach myself to, as opposed to Steve Nash, where it's just like, hey, he's a great guy, Hey, he's a sweetheart of a gentleman, and he's the Colin Firth of coaching. You know what I mean? Just like a solid rom-com lead, not offensive.
I want someone surly with an expansive wine cellar, Mike.
I want the Gene Hackman. You went great, Bob.
No, I don't. I'm just saying, like those elements to a personality. It's what we need a little bit right now. We need people who are willing to get in a fight about things not going well. That's what I would like. That's what I would like.
I brought up Jeff Van Gundy as like the guy. What Jeff Van Gundy was like with the Knicks, but like this guy. The problem with Steve Nash is that like, nothing feels pressing for him. Yeah. He's very much into process, and he is such a smart sort of basketball person that I think he even realizes like, how much structure could I really provide these guys? We should focus on getting them comfortable, where you need like a grinder who, you don't want him to piss off the star players, but you need someone who like just sweats every night thinking about the way that they can improve this team. Steve Nash feels like more of like, it just that he's like kind of like a camp counselor a little camp counselor. Anyways, let's do this quick break. Coming back. Hey, Ben Simmons. Let's talk about Ben Simmons.
Okay, let's do it.
And we're back, Brian. Ben Simmons. So there are so many things that I could talk about here. I could quote Shams Charania stories, Adrian Wojnarowski stories, Jake Fisher stories. The basic meat of it is everyone with the Nets was surprised that Ben Simmons could not play in Game 4. It seems like Ben Simmons, now there's this idea that mental problems go hand in hand, if not supersede the physical problems. And that something that you and I talked about on this very show a month ago, if not further back, that mental issues, stress, not mental issues, but stress, can lead to back pain, and that is literally being reported. I credit you, Brian. That is your take.
Wow, I was too afraid. I credit you for giving me for having the courage to take the take and then actually put it into the universe because I didn't want to use it. But then
it's your take.
Yeah,
it's your take.
I appreciate
it's your authentically your take. You're the back expert. I don't know. I was just, in all full honesty, like I was going to declare to the people of our pod that I would not talk about Ben Simmons all off season, just because until I see him put on the Nets uniform and dribble the ball on the floor during a regular season game, he's not a reality.
I don't think it's technically off season yet. We're in limbo because the season isn't over, so it's not the off season. Okay, so we're just not playing. That's all.
Well, I did see, I think Alex Schiffer or Matt Brooks tweeted out that the Nets could technically start making trades now with other teams that are not in the playoffs.
Really? Is that true?
Yeah, so maybe we get a Ben Simmons trade in the playoffs.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, but the playoff teams, they don't care because what are they going to do? But
got it.
Losers. We're getting ahead of the game. Yeah. So I'm sure you've read some of the reporting. Do you feel worse? Do you feel worse?
Dude, I don't know why. Like, I don't have Ben Simmons isn't in my. He's not my Rolodex yet. Okay, like I don't have his number. He's not. I'm not really considering him going forward. Like he is a. I think we also need to like recognize like he's a very damaged asset right now. Like there's in a many ways damaged asset, and so yeah, it's a weird. We're in a weird spot right now because I don't I don't know what the future holds for this guy in any of the various iterations. Obviously, I would love it. I do think on paper he makes a lot of sense as the often talked about connective tissue between KD and Kyrie, who, as we've talked about, and I think in this series specifically, it was highlighted that they have literally no chemistry together. The religion of bucket getting is a singular practice more often than not. It's not a group. It's not a group. You're not doing Om chanting with your friends. You're off by yourself, getting your buckets, which they do, and they take turns doing it. But there was no. There was a missing piece there, maybe a James Harden style piece or now a Ben Simmons style piece that can bring it all together. And I think that on paper, it makes a lot of sense. There's lots of reasons to be interested, intrigued, / even excited, like about that particular fit. But again, I just don't know what to make of this guy. I have no idea. I have no context. He's Kaiser Sose. He's a notion. Is he real? Is he not? I don't know.
I mean, there's a couple of things that I feel like I can definitively state now that we've gotten to this point, now that the season is over and that Simmons never showed up for the Nets.
State it, brother. Let it out.
A lot of people have blamed Clutch, which is Ben Simmons' agency, for how they've handled the Simmons situation. And I really do think, as much as people like to hate on Rich Paul, I'm going to guess the way he wants to run his agency, like he doesn't want a group of players who don't play basketball. Ultimately, he would love if all of his clients were playing basketball. So people have been attributing the reason why Ben Simmons has been so mysterious and not, being out there on the floor to Clutch. It's all Ben Simmons, right? Good and bad, it's all Ben Simmons. I guarantee Ben Simmons was telling the Nets, we've had some reporting of this, I want to play and I'm going to work to get back to play. And I guarantee he's telling Rich Paul and the rest of Clutch, I want to play basketball. I'll work my way back to play basketball. I want to play for the Nets. He may be saying all of those things, and yet they are all continually seemingly surprised by the fact that Ben Simmons doesn't play. I also think going back to the trade, we had talked about this pre-trade, and I said, I wouldn't make the deal unless if I got really good intel from probably Clutch, but any other sources that I knew that if the Nets traded for Ben Simmons, that he would come back and play. Now, at that time, we had no clue about this back injury, right? This back injury maybe didn't exist, and maybe it's never existed because we can get into the whole medical situation of that, because typically stress doesn't, I don't know if it causes herniated discs, and that's what we were told his back was, but I could be wrong. But going back to the trade, I think it's obvious there was a ton of pressure on Sean Marks to make some kind of deal. I think it was reported either in Jake Fisher or Adrian Wojnarowski that the Nets essentially knew that if Harden lasted past the deadline, that he wouldn't play for the team. That like he basically was just going to sit out, which is a crazy thing for him to. If he had done that, he would become the biggest villain in NBA history, just about. But apparently, that's what they felt like was going to happen. So they made the trade, but they did make this trade thinking they were going to have Ben Simmons play basketball. Probably because Rich Paul told them that Simmons would, and Simmons didn't. So Sean Marks was played for a mark. First time that's ever been said.
Got him.
And the Nets, are look completely foolish.
Can I say something? So I'm looking at the new. So there's an opt out of the existing CBA that has to be provided notice for by December 15th, 2022. I can't imagine a world in which the league ownership doesn't opt out of the CBA. The fact that we're in a situation right now where players are not playing the amount of games that they're not playing is like something fundamentally needs to happen. So this is all a roundabout way of going into the fact that Ben Simmons is using legal levers to try to pry $20 million out of the 76ers. Conspiracy. Do you have your tinfoil handy?
I'm ready for it because I didn't want to. I wanted to hear your full take on this.
So, I haven't gone deep into this, and it's, this is why I have a tinfoil hat on and not, my legal pad on my head, like a lawyer would wear a legal pad on their head. The situation there is that, so, he didn't play game 4, which for me was the biggest. Ben Simmons did not play game 4 against the Celtics, and for me that was like the biggest white flag like ever, basically, that the Nets were like, we're either one of two things is happening, or three things, if we're being honest. One, it's true that Ben Simmons is like authentically hurt and, continues to be that way, and so on and so forth. And that one extra day meant that was transformative, which, okay, I don't know. The other is that the Nets were like, this makes no sense. Here's the white flag. We're going to get swept anyways, probably even with you. So let's not like put it in any risk, and like also just have you risk the humiliation of your one game you played this season being in an exiting fourth game of the first round. And then the third, and this is where the tinfoil is going to come in handy, Mike, is that it looks better in your legal case if you don't play that game. And I think it's very possible that if you're factoring in, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It could be parts of either of those three or all three. That I think there is reason to believe that if he's actually trying to pry $20 million out of the Sixers, it looks better if this thing, goes the distance, and there actually needs to be some kind of litigiousness that goes beyond just like, going back and forth between league officials. It will maybe look better on paper to not have played this game because of of the consistency of your mental issues that you are claiming, and that's the reason why you're owed this money.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very possible. I mean, it's been talked about a little bit, right, that this continual absence is related back to him trying to get that $20 million back from the Sixers. I just think there's been a change in tone of the reporting from those insiders, the Shams, Wojs of the world, that like it feels like before the things that they were getting and the positive stuff they were getting were very much from Clutch and all that stuff. It almost feels like not that Clutch has turned on Ben Simmons, but even like Rich Paul and others pretty much confirm that everyone thought that Simmons was gonna play, and that Ben Simmons himself has made the decision that I'm not gonna play.
Think about it from the agent's perspective. The fact that Ben Simmons didn't play at all after the James Harden trade, and it was expected that he would, looks really bad. Surely there was some assurances behind the scenes of like, hey, like Sean, hey, Rich, is this going to be like, are we going to be able to play this guy this season? Does this, because we're doing this for short-term success. There's a reason why we didn't trade James Harden back for like a bajillion first-round picks. It's because we wanted to win now, and Ben Simmons is on the table, and ostensibly he should be able to play. So from an agent's perspective, now he's dealing in the dark arts of hiding the fact that the guy's not going to play the season. That's what it looks like. At least like maybe didn't hide it or not, but like on paper, that's what happened. You traded a lemon, Rich, and that's bad. That's a bad look for an agent.
Yeah, and Rich Paul's an extremely smart guy. He's run an incredibly powerful business. But what is going to happen in about 4 years' time? LeBron is going to retire, and Rich Paul won't have sort of the power of LeBron to also combine with his powers. His powers combined equal Captain Planet, right? Mm-hmm. They won't have, earth, fire, wind, water, and heart. Maybe they'll just have wind and water. And what do you got really there? You need all five to make Captain Planet, ultimately. That's what that show showed me. Mm-hmm. And so the sort of the next generation of Clutch athletes, the way agents accumulate power is by having the most number of superstars so that they can control one, where those superstars go in the league, and also, as we've seen with Clutch in Cleveland, role players get big contracts like Tristan Thompson and Contavious Caldwell-Pope, people like that, because they're Clutch clients playing with Clutch superstars, right? And it behooves Clutch and Rich Paul that Ben Simmons is in Brooklyn playing really good basketball, right? Because if he's really great on a great team, that just increases Clutch's power. Whew. Mm-hmm. And Ben Simmons is a young guy. I think he's still 25, right? Maybe even younger than that, 25.
Something like that.
And he, Ben Simmons should be one of the stars of his generation of NBA players on some level. And him not playing basketball is bad for Clutch. And as you said, it hurts their sort of, agents lie all the time. I'm sure teams are used to that. Teams lie all the time. I'm sure agents are used to that. But a lie this big, and I almost don't even know. That's my thing. It's like now, because of how the thing played out, and because all the reporting says everyone believed that Ben Simmons was either going to play in game 3 or game 4, and then this back pain cropped up. And I don't want to lose the point that where the reporting now says that Simmons attributed some of it to a mental. This is what from Shams Charania. Simmons told those in the room, meaning, Rich Paul and the Nets, that a mental block exists for him dating back in part to last season's postseason, which is creating stress that could serve as a trigger point for his back issues, right? So all of this leads to Ben Simmons. I mean, it's just so...
So for me, that, and I hate to be cynical about this, but for me, like, for him to like be like, here's the day, we're coming to the day where you might play, and just to be consistent and like to be that vocal about his like that, it's like I have a mental block about this. That feels like something that's like, and I hate to be cynical about this, but having dealt with lawyers, that feels like a very coached response that you could be like, here, look, here's the timeline of this thing, and it was throughout the entirety of the season. So like, if there's any addendum in your contract, some like, that allows for this, it is consistent throughout, and there was at no point did he waver off that point. And even in the last date of the season, he affirms that for mental health reasons, I cannot play. It would just look, if there is a lawyer in the room looking at this, it's very good for that person. I'll say that.
So, and you're operating from the belief, the tinfoil belief, right? The theory that this is all part of...
I'm just saying it's not worth it to him to run out there, lose that, fourth game, even potentially hurt himself, and then also have his case for that $20 million, which I'm sure he wants, look that, like, be, have a tiny little pinprick in it. Like, why not have it just completely sealed up?
Yeah, so, and like, I'm not trying to disagree with you. I don't know if him not playing helps the case, right, fully. And I will say this. I think what he is exhibiting is kind of classic someone with mental struggles. Is, to be honest, someone who says they will do something. And I will liken it to like going to rehab or, saying I'll get a job or I'll quit this certain thing, right? Those people who have so his mental struggle is playing basketball now. It's playing in a professional NBA game, right?
It's a tough block to have for his particular occupation. That's a tough one.
So I will not try to get too personal, but there's someone in my life who's an addicted gambler.
Oh,
okay,
interesting.
And I've heard many times, they will stop gambling, right? And so they'll say, after this moment, I will stop gambling. And so they, everything seems fine. That goal is being headed towards, maybe they do stop and then they pick up gambling later again. And I'm not saying what Simmons has is an addiction, because it's actually the opposite. It's a withdrawal from basketball. He's the anti-addiction to basketball.
This is some true dime store therapy. I'm loving it.
Simmons.
This is withdrawal symptoms from a lack of the epidural. That
he is basketball celibate. Yeah. Okay. He is saying, because what he's ultimately doing is he's telling everyone in his life, I'm fine, I'm excited, I'm ready, right? Like, we heard the quotes in the locker room, like, before the Celtics series and, like, during the beginning parts of it, was that, like, Ben Simmons is like Michael Jordan out there, right? Like, remember that, like the insider sources were saying, plus players were saying, that Ben has swagger, right? He has this outward confidence about the way he was practicing, and, oh my gosh, when he comes back, we're going to be a wrecking ball. Miley Cyrus, great song. But what Ben Simmons actually did was he told everyone he was going to come back. And then when he had to come back, when it got to that date, he crumbled again. And I do think it's like kind of legit for him. If he actually, I think it's authentically, he does have mental issues on some level related to basketball and performance.
Yeah, I'm not saying any of this stuff is mutually exclusive.
No, I know you're not. Yeah. I'm just saying, I think there's still a belief out there from some that they're like, oh, these mental issues are fake. Mm-hmm. No, they are legit. Like, it's very unusual to operate the way that he's operated. It like, what would the end game be if he never played basketball again? The only reason why he wouldn't play basketball again is because he does have a mental problem with basketball. My fear, as I'm sure every other Nets fan feels, and we're almost done with the show. We almost wrap it up, but is that when will he ever get over it? And I made a joke on Twitter like the Nets should send him to summer league. It's really not the worst idea, because if it's simply stepping out onto the floor in an NBA style game, summer league is a pretty soft landing spot compared to like the start of the season, where he would be about the biggest story to start a season. Is Ben Simmons going to play basketball?
He loves summer league too. He had that one amazing summer league when he was a rookie. That was the talk of the town, Mike. So yeah, bring him back. So anyways,
my whole entire sort of fear and sort of MO going forward into this offseason, because we're going to talk about so much fun stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how excited I can get for Ben Simmons playing basketball for this team, because like if he has a true mental block about playing, when's a good time for him to get over that? Right. Tell me.
Tough spot to be in, Mike. But that and so much more. That and so much more.
I think so. We have some really fun stuff coming up. Should we tell people what our idea is? Yeah. We're gonna have an Irish wake.
Yeah.
For the Nets season. Des Lombardo, our content extraordinaire, he thought of the idea. He's going to be on the show. Other famous voices and friends of the show,
huge,
are going to contribute.
Matthew McConaughey will be there. Huge names.
They're going to contribute some thoughts. We'll do a fun show for that, and then we'll do some mailbag, and then all off season. I mean, we're going to be doing Joe Harris fake trades, Ben Simmons fake trades. I will be doing that. Small ways to fix the team, big ways to fix the team. Free agency preview. I think the Nets are probably going to trade that first round pick for something. So we'll do what can they trade that for? If you hate the playoffs but love to talk offseason, we're here for you.
Love that for us, Mike. At BK Glue Guys, there's a fly. There's a fly coming right for my eyeballs. Coming for BK Glue Guys on Twitter, discord.gg/Glue Guys. That's where the chatting happens. YouTube, smash the subscribe, hammerjack the like button. Theathletic.com/Glue Guys. Get behind that paywall. And get yourself a copy of the New York Times on your way to the store. Mike, we're out of here. Say goodbye.
Bye.